Good morning. So, did any of you guys print this off at home? We watched the video yesterday. Can't get it to pull up. It's a YouTube video. All you have to do is click on the link. Did you see it? Did you see it? You guys. I told you you need to, when you're at home, get one of these. Got one of these? Okay. Let me show you. I really need you guys to do this as part of school, where when you're home, you have to watch the other half of my class when they're being taught, and they're going to watch while you guys are being taught. Over there. Okay, so this is your class. Have you found this? You seen this? Yes? Okay, click on that. Okay, right here I have, this is the political party affiliation. That's what I just handed you. I'll print you one here in a second. And then, if you go to assignments, okay, right here is the lecture from yesterday. Okay. This was the introduction video that I went over the syllabus. Okay. So you click on that. Okay, and it's a YouTube video. So I'm recording this right now. Okay. And Brian is watching us as well. Okay. So he's can't come in live, which you guys can do as well. Okay. Okay. All right. So what we did with that, we had started. Okay. So guys, the goal of the exercise that we're doing here is to get an understanding of what's going on in the United States politically, okay? And it's also going to allow us to see where you stand politically. Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Are you a libertarian? Now, I know a lot of you guys may not feel like you care about it, okay? That's like my job is to help you to care about it, all right? So yesterday we didn't really do abortion because I feel like a lot of people at this school already know a lot about abortion, okay? So we did affirmative action, which you'll need to watch the video, okay? And reduction in welfare, which is also on the video from yesterday. Okay, so we're on number 4 today. Okay, and that is allowing prayer in school. Okay, now do you know what the first textbook that was used in American public schools was? Like think back to, and you guys ever watch Little House on the Prairie? Okay, like when people moved out here to Kansas and they started little schoolhouses, what book did they use? They used the Bible. Okay, that's where they learned their vocabulary. That's where they learned their lessons, was from the Bible. Okay, and as time went on, they developed other types of books like the New England Primer. When they started having more population, bigger schools, they used that. But a lot of the vocabulary for the New England Primer came from the Bible. So there's a long tradition of biblical teaching in public schools in this country. Now, times change, okay? And they really changed in 1962. In this court case here, Engel versus Vitale, okay? And the case here is that school-sponsored prayer is a violation of the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment, okay? The great thing about the First Amendment, guys, is that it protects your religion, okay? But it also prevents one single religion from dominating. So when we had 13 colonies, 13 states, we broke away from Britain, some of the states had in their constitutions, if you want to run for office, you have to be an Episcopalian. You have to be a Methodist. Otherwise, you can't run for office in this state. So when they wrote the new Constitution, the First Amendment, they put in there that you cannot establish a religion, an official state religion. Okay? But you can't prohibit the free exercise thereof. So this is what we're doing in this school, is the free exercise of religion. It's protected by the Constitution that we can join together and form Catholic schools. Okay? And so we're allowed to do that. Muslims are allowed to do that as well. Okay? Jews are allowed to do that as well. All right? That is the free exercise. They can't prevent you. Now, if you're at Northwest High School right now, okay, can you pray? Are you allowed to pray in a public school? Do you know? Jackson, you play sports. You ever see other public school teams pray before games? I have. I know when Coach Topping was at Heights, they would pray before games. I went to a football game once in Liberal. Okay. First year I taught here, I coached freshman football. And I went with Coach Lawbon. We went out to Liberal for the game. Okay. That's back when Liberal was really good. And I was shocked that over the PA system before the game, they said the Lord's Prayer, which is way unconstitutional. You can't do that. But apparently nobody complained. Okay, so they let it happen. I was like, did they just do that? Okay, because you wouldn't see that at Northwest or in the City League or even in Mays or Goddard. There's too much opposition to it. Okay, so the thing is here is a teacher who's paid by the state cannot promote religion. The PA system, okay, say a student wanted to do a prayer before school at Northwest. The PA system is paid for by state tax dollars. So you can't use it for the prayer. Now, if you're at a football game at Northwest and you want to stand up in the stands as a student and say, hey, everybody, let's pray. The Lord's Prayer for the safety of the athletes. You can do that. That's free exercise. Okay, and this all comes down to what's the Lemon test, which the Supreme Court said, you know, we have all these cases coming up. Here are the rules, okay, that what is allowed and what is not, okay? So there's a lot of misconceptions with the First Amendment here and prayer, okay? So what you have to kind of look at is, have you heard this term, the wall of separation between church and state? Okay, that's not in the First Amendment. It's not in the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson, who did not write the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. Okay, he said when they wrote the Constitution, churches were worried that the government was going to have control over them. So Jefferson said to the Danbury Baptist Association, he said, listen, there's a wall of separation. The government cannot control your church. Jefferson wasn't saying that religion couldn't be in government. He was saying that government couldn't control religion. Okay, so the Supreme Court's kind of taken those words of Jefferson and really restricted prayer in school, or a lot of any religious symbols and so forth. Now, if you're at Meigs High School or Northwest High School, guys, you can start a Bible club or a Bible study in those schools, just like you can have a LGBTQ club at those schools as well. Okay, that's allowed. Okay, so if you allow one, you got to allow the other. Does that make sense? Okay, so since 1962, when we took God out of the schools, what has happened to our culture? Man, I got two words for you. Jersey Shore. You guys ever watch that show? Never seen that? You ever watch MTV? Okay. Teen Moms? Any of these shows? Okay. The culture has, it's just, we've moved away from God. Okay. When you take God out of the schools, that tends to happen. Okay. So people don't really have an understanding of, right and wrong. It's just kind of, whatever feels good. Okay. There's no shame in the way people behave or dress, and so forth. Okay. So some people feel that, putting prayer back into school is a good idea to kind of teach kids what they might not be getting at home. And that's the difference between right and wrong. Let me give you an example. Okay, this may seem a little bit uncomfortable to you. I don't care. I'm going to tell you right now that premarital sex is wrong. It's a sin. It's something to be held for marriage. And we know that because God told us that. Okay? Now, I couldn't say that to you in a public school, right? I could lose my job for that. My buddy, Mr. O'Connor, that teaches at Northwest, he teaches government, just like me. Okay, he used to teach in this room right next to me, but he needed to make more money, so he went over to the public schools. And if he's having this talk with his students, he can tell them, he said, premarital sex has major implications for your life. So, like, if you have a teen pregnancy, the chances of your child growing up and being, successful are diminished, okay, because your ability to do the things you want to do to improve your life is diminished as well. Okay, especially if you don't have any family support to help you. Okay, you can get STDs, okay, and life is going to be a struggle for you. But he can't tell people that premarital sex is wrong, because somebody's going to ask, why? Why is it wrong, Mr. O'Connor? And he can't answer that question without revealing God. You guys following me on this? So as far as learning the truth, our students don't learn the truth. Okay, and so some people would like to see religion allowed back into the school. Now that's tough, because not everybody's a Christian. So what kind of prayer are you going to do? Just like to the Almighty, and because you may have Muslims, you may have Jews, you may have Buddhists, Hindus, atheists. And is it fair to force one view of religion on another group? And that's where you run into trouble with this establishment clause. Okay? Fewer and fewer Americans every year believe in God. And the way our system was set up, guys, the way the founders drew this thing up was there was a strong feeling that the only way people could rule themselves is if they were a moral people. And once we lose that morality, that knowledge of right and wrong, that objective truth, I know you guys have studied objective truth before, okay? Once you lose that, people will no longer be able to govern themselves because they don't know how to act. So you're going to need more powerful government to control people because they don't know how to control themselves. And this is a real problem in our society today. You have 50, 60 million people living in poverty that don't believe in God. That's a recipe for high crime, massive incarceration rates, which is what we have. Okay? And that's a problem. So some people think, the answer to that is God. And I don't know if you agree with that or not. Can you find a way to do it without violating the Establishment Clause? No, you would probably have to write a constitutional amendment to change the Constitution to allow for prayer in school. Now, Kentucky just set up a system where they allow elective classes in religion. So if you want to sign up for Christianity class in Kentucky in high school, you can. But it's an elective. Okay? So states are still trying to do this without failing the lemon test that says you can do this and you can't do that. Okay? So just kind of based on what you know, should we allow prayer back in school? Would that help society? Or is it too late? Or if people want to go to religious school, they go to religious school. Now, we are the only diocese in the country that uses this stewardship model, where if you're poor, you can go to a Catholic school that costs almost $10,000 a year for a lot less than that. Okay? Most Catholic schools are very expensive across the country. I have family in Columbus, Ohio. They all went to Catholic schools. And they pay, as much as some people pay for college, to go to Catholic school. And there's a lot of non-Catholics. If you go down to Louisiana, guys, public schools are horrible. So anybody that can afford it goes to Catholic school, even if you're not Catholic, because those are the best schools. And what do the Catholics get right? I mean, if you want success in education, what do we get right here? What does Trinity Academy across town get right? Discipline, school uniform, a little bit of Jesus, right? I mean, I hope you want that for your kids. Because I'm really glad that I didn't have to send my kids to public school. I went to public schools. Okay? I mean, some of them are really good. Okay? A lot of what matters is what's going on at home. Okay? But for those that don't have it at home, a choice to go to a religious or Catholic school could be a great benefit to those students. I wish I could make this bigger. My screen's down to like this little box. Sorry, I'm just going to play with this a little bit. All right, so you guys decide what you think about that. Okay? It won't let me blow that up. Okay. Good, so you decide yes or no. Now, the stuff out to the side, reasoning or qualification, that is like, if you're having a hard time saying yes or no, like with the abortion one, I told everybody this yesterday. Like, I want to eliminate abortion, but maybe not for rape or incest. You know, some people say that sometimes, okay? So if it helps you, say yes or no, because some of these are going to be hard for you to say yes or no, okay? All right, we're going to go to 14-year-olds as adults. Try 14-year-olds as adults. Now, guys, this is for violent crime. This isn't for shoplifting, okay? This isn't somebody getting busted for, you know, TPing a school or something like that. Okay, this is for rape. This is for murder, okay? Attempted murder, these sorts of things, okay? Now, I chose 14, knowing that, guys, in this country, I have read stories of people as young as 9 years old being tried as adults. Now, understand, if you are tried as an adult, as a juvenile, you don't go to adult prison at the age of 16 or 14 or anything like that. You go to a juvenile institution until you're 18, and then you're transferred to the big house, El Dorado. Okay? Now, what a judge is going to want to know in the case of a violent crime with a 14-year-old is this. Does this individual understand the consequences of their action? Any of you guys have 14-year-old siblings? Okay. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say, how many of you guys have ever heard of the video game Grand Theft Auto? Okay, that teaches you some nice lessons, right? Okay, so you got this 14-year-old that's playing Grand Theft Auto, 6 hours a day. And the new version of the game comes out. All right? $60 to buy one of those games, right? He doesn't have $60. So he goes over to an ATM and hides out. And your grandmother is going to withdraw some money at the ATM, and this kid comes out with a baseball bat, beats her over the head, and steals her money so he can go buy the game. 14-year-old. Now think if your sibling, that's you guys kind of raised, and you guys are just 3 or 4 years removed from being 14, do you understand the consequences of your action? And grandma just died. He just killed her. Now, you got 2 choices. You can send this kid to juvenile, charge them as a juvenile, put them on trial, found guilty, and they go to juvenile until the age of 18. And then you let them out, hoping that this person will never commit this type of crime again or kill somebody else's grandmother or you. Or you could charge them as an adult and go to juvie to 18, then be transferred to the big house, and you could give that person a 25-year sentence, a 40-year sentence. So he didn't plan on killing grandma, so that's not first-degree murder. That's second-degree murder. Okay, first-degree murder, guys, is when you plan it and you carry it out. Okay, that's capital murder, and in some states, like Kansas, you can get the death penalty for that. Okay, second-degree murder, can come with sentences, 20 to 40 years, something like that. Okay, you didn't plan to kill somebody, but it happened. So, do you think that we do a good job reforming our juvenile inmates? Like when we send them to juvie hall, do we help them and teach them how to be good citizens and so forth? You're throwing kids that are breaking the law in a place together. So you got a bunch of kids that have broken the law together. Same thing in our prisons. You've got a bunch of criminals that are together. It's hard to reform them. It takes a lot of money. I don't know if you guys remember the Boys Ranch. You guys ever run cross country out of Lake Aston? They had this place called the Boys Ranch, where they would take them out there and they'd work kind of on the ranch with, farm animals and stuff like that, and use that to kind of reform. That's expensive. That's a lot more expensive than having a facility downtown where they're in a cage. Okay, so in order to invest in reforming our inmates, we have really high recidivism rates, where once you commit a crime, the likelihood of you committing a crime again is very high in this country. So, what do you do with 14-year-olds? Violent crime. Are you okay with charging them? Or you want to give them a second chance so they can do it again? Or not? We believe in second chances in this country. If you ever get arrested for something, if it's your first offense, the government tends to goes pretty easy on you. Not for murder, okay, but for smaller crimes. They tend to go pretty easy on you the first time around. Second time around, yep, you've shown a pattern. You're going to jail, okay? So, 14-year-olds as adults for violent crime, yes or no? You decide. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. Now, the way this is written, okay, pay attention to number 6. The way this is written, limit the number of gun control laws. This isn't limiting guns. This is limiting the laws that limit guns. Okay. So, guns are a big issue in our country, yes? A lot of people like to talk about guns, or people are pro-gun or anti-gun, yes? Now, we have something called the Second Amendment to the Constitution. Let me quote it for you. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay? Now, why did they write that in there? Guys, you heard of the American Revolution? We fought the biggest army in the world, the most well-trained army in the world, with farmers and doctors and lawyers and blacksmiths with muskets. Okay, and without those muskets, they would have never been able to defeat the British Empire, would they have? And when Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, he said those governments that are destructive to the people have the right to alter or abolish that government. And that's exactly what we did with the British. So the reason I put the Second Amendment in there is so that you can defend your family, yourself, and your country from your government. I'm not calling for armed revolution here, guys. You're saying that the government fears the people. And without weapons, the government doesn't fear the people. Okay? Criminals don't fear you if they think you are unarmed. However, guys, we have a lot of gunplay in this country. We have more guns than we have people. Okay? And all you have to do is open the newspaper or flip on some news, and you can see in Chicago over Labor Day weekend, 52 people were shot, 10 died. And almost every gun used in that situation was a handgun. Easy to conceal, easy to get, okay? Now, I did something that I didn't have in the first 50 years of my life during the shutdown, right before the shutdown. I bought a gun. Now, you don't have to answer this question. How many of you guys have guns in your house? You don't have to. Okay. This is Kansas. Okay. This isn't New York. This is Kansas. And people hunt. And people want to be able to defend themselves. Okay. And I wanted to buy a gun before I felt like it was going to be too late to buy a gun. And, you know, with the shutdown, when was it going to be over? You know? Got to be able to protect my house, my family. If somebody comes to try to take what I have. Okay? So, I told you what the amendment was. Now, have you ever heard of Wyatt Earp? Wyatt Earp. We live in Kansas. Okay? Once upon a time in Kansas, we were known as the Wild West. There was this town out west called Dodge City. Okay? They make movies about this stuff. Wyatt Earp, the Westerns, Doc Holliday, Billy the Kid, all this stuff, right? This is Kansas. And Wyatt Earp was hired to be the sheriff of Dodge City. Okay? And the first thing Wyatt Earp did was he put a sign up when you walked into the town or rode your horse into Dodge City that said, all firearms will be surrendered to the sheriff while you are in Dodge City. Get it back when you leave. Because people were shooting each other like crazy. It was nuts. Just like the Westerns. Now, the Second Amendment says, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Was Wyatt Earp infringing on people's right to keep and bear arms? Yes. Okay, we have hundreds of gun laws in this country. Can you buy a handgun at 18? At 18, handgun, legally? You can buy a shotgun at 18. You can't buy a handgun until you're 21. Pretty sure. Yes. Okay? That's a gun law. Yes? If you are convicted of a felony, you are not allowed to possess a weapon. Own one or carry one, you're not allowed to have one. That's a gun law. Does that make sense? You can't bring a gun to the school. That's a gun law. To the movie theater, to the mall. That's a gun law. Yes? We have hundreds of infringements on the Second Amendment. Okay? Some of them make sense. Some of them don't. I kind of like the thing about the convicted felon. Okay? That they can't own a gun. Probably a good idea. Do convicted felons break that law and get guns? Yes, they do. And I guarantee you, of the 50s, or how many ever people were shot in Chicago this weekend, a lot of them were shot by convicted felons. Yeah? So, did that law do what it was supposed to do? Stop people from getting guns? Felons? No, they broke the law. Murder is illegal. There's a law against it. But does that stop people from shooting other people? You can pass all the laws you want. Okay? But I don't think that's going to mean people won't break them. So there are those out there that want more gun laws. Okay? And those out there that want fewer. Now, Kansas is an open carry state. Okay? You can get a holster and pack heat. Now, there's certain places that say don't bring a gun in here. Okay? Which is interesting in and of itself. If there are no guns allowed here in this school, if somebody decides to come to this school and shoot people, guess what they know? Nobody else has a gun. I'm the only one with a gun. And so I can indiscriminately kill people. There's nobody to stop me. So these mass shootings that you see, people, almost are all carried out in gun-free zones. Does that make sense to you? So after what happened in Parkland, Florida, right? Parkland High School. You guys remember this a couple years ago? Okay? Forget how many people were killed, but I think it was like 18 or something like that. Some people said we want to put cops in the schools with a gun. I got no issue with that. Some people said let's hire retired veterans that know how to use weapons to just be at the school just in case. Let's allow teachers to pack, which they do in Utah now. You got to get trained. Okay. Now, I don't want to pack in school. I just bought a gun. I don't know how to use it. I mean, I know how to use it, but I'm not trained. Okay. And I'm a pretty good shot. I've gone a couple times to the range, and I'm pretty good, especially when I have my glasses on. But what about Mr. Lemonnier? Would that bother any of you if Mr. Lemonnier was allowed to have a gun in his office just in case? And this guy, his dad's law enforcement. He's been hunting and doing stuff his whole life with guns. Would that scare you that Mr. Lemonnier had a gun in the office to help protect us if somebody decided to come in? It makes common sense, right? But he's not allowed to under state law. Okay? So, gun control. Now, guys, if you're going to do away with guns or have more laws, you might as well just get rid of them. Okay? Because criminals break the law. So if they pass the law that says we need to turn in all of our handguns to the government so we stop killing each other, law-abiding citizens like myself are likely to turn their gun in. Who doesn't turn their gun in? Criminals. So the only people left with guns are criminals and the cops. And it takes 6 minutes for the cops to show up. Plenty of time for people to kill. So I know guns are awful, and I know a lot of victims, there's a lot of victims of gun violence, and it's horrible. But what is the answer? These laws that people break do nothing to stop. The legislation they talk about passing in Congress would not have stopped the Parkland shooting. If you have been institutionalized mentally ill, maybe you should not be able to own a gun. I'm okay with that to an extent. But some people say anybody that's been diagnosed with depression should not be able to own a gun. Well, wait a second. I think it's like 40% of the population now that's been diagnosed with depression. You're going to strip 40% of the people? What if one of those people with depression has depression because her husband beat her up and she left him and she fears for her life, so she wants to have a gun to protect herself from her crazy, crazy husband? You're going to strip away her right to defend herself. You see what I'm saying here? So the reaction to mass shootings, which are horrible, is always we need more gun laws. Tell me which ones are going to stop the mass shooting other than no guns in the country whatsoever. Because people are always going to break the law, whether you pass it or not. Okay? So it's something to think about. Now, I haven't really been fair on this one. I'm supposed to give you both sides of this. Okay? So I want you to think about it from a victim standpoint or somebody that lives in a high crime neighborhood. We need to get these guns off the street, especially away from those that are criminals, that are convicted felons. We need better enforcement. Okay? So, I could say you could make a stiffer penalty for felons caught with a gun, like automatic 25 years. And that might make them think twice about owning a gun, but probably not. So, if you want more gun laws, you think we need to get rid of guns, I want you to say no. If you think we have enough gun laws, or you think we got too many gun laws, say yes. Does that make sense? Okay. You want more gun laws to stop people from getting guns, say no. If you think we have enough laws, we just need to enforce the ones we have, and you're okay with gun ownership, say yes. Okay. Now, I need to do a little bit on the Constitution with this real quick. This court case was Heller. Thank you. My brain still works. Heller versus DC, and this is 2005. Okay. Washington, D.C., a lot of crime. They said you're not allowed to own a handgun in the city limits. It's against the law to own a handgun. Chicago did the same thing. Not allowed to own a, you own a rifle, shotgun, that's fine, no handguns. Okay? Heller was sitting in his home one night, lived in D.C. Somebody broke into his house with a gun. Heller was breaking the law. He had a gun too. He shot the intruder. The cops arrested Heller for owning a gun in the city limits. He fought it, went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, whoa, 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 whoa. Heller has a Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. You cannot strip that from him. He's a law-abiding citizen. So, as far as 2005 goes, guys, your right to own a gun has been, the Second Amendment has stood up to the Supreme Court. Okay? So, Second Amendment still stands for now. Okay? All right. We got a couple minutes. Allow hate speech in the United States. Okay. Ask. You ever see these interviews where like people ask people stuff on the streets? You know, should we ban hate speech? First Amendment, freedom of speech. There are limits. You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. You cannot start a riot because people are going to get hurt, trampled, yes? Okay. But as far as your feelings go, I think I talked about this the other day. Your feelings are not protected by the First Amendment, by anything. Okay? Now, hate speech is ugly. Okay? Should we ban it? In Canada, they have hate speech laws. You can go to jail for saying the wrong thing. But guys, did any of you read 1984? Did you have to read 1984? Gosh darn it. Everybody should have to read it. I just finished it. I read it way back in high school and said, you know what, I need to read that again. The thought police. Okay? There's certain words you can't say anymore, not supposed to say anything. Like, I'm just going to say it, using it as an example, okay? Retarded. You're not supposed to use that anymore. You know that? You guys know that? You're not supposed to say, call somebody retarded, because that's offensive to people that may actually be retarded, or somebody that has a child that may be retarded. And retarded means just that their faculties are retarded. Does that make sense? It's a word. You just can't say it anymore. Okay? You can't say gay anymore. These sorts of things, right? So you could lose your job if you say something like that. That's up to your employer, but you can't go to jail for it. You know what I mean? But in Canada, you can. So yeah, you say things that hurt people's feelings, that make them upset, that make them angry. Hate speech. Should that be protected in this country? Here's the question, guys. Who gets to decide what is hate speech? Because say you're a strong Christian and you believe that Islam and its prophet Muhammad, especially, who married what? 9-year-old girls and had several wives, and you want to criticize that, which I have no problem doing, because I'm free to in this country. But if you did that in Canada, if you criticized the Muslim faith, you could go to jail. You want to live in that country? Now, speech can be offensive. It can do damage to people, their feelings and their emotions, make them feel afraid. It's ugly. I don't recommend it. Burning the flag is speech. Okay? So we'll talk a little bit more about that on the video tomorrow that you guys need to watch. Do you understand me? If not, I'm going to start giving you guys quizzes when you show up in here. This is good stuff. This is stuff you need to know to be an educated citizen. That's my job. You got it? Yes, Mr. Ebright. I'm a really nice guy. Don't make me be mean.